Can I work and take my Social Security benefit at the same time? In today's video, we're going to talk about what happens if you have income and you take your Social Security benefit. We're talking about the Social Security earnings test. Hey everyone, I'm Nick Davis, founder of Brindle Bay Wealth Management, and I'm here to show you how to master your retirement money. And in today's video, we're talking about Social Security earnings test. What is it? When does it apply? What are the specific rules? Should I take Social Security early? And what is that surprise I don't want to get? Okay, the surprise that you don't want to get is you claim your benefit and then it doesn't show up because you have a Social Security earnings test. So what is it? Well, it's a penalty for taking your Social Security benefit when you're not yet full retirement age. So full retirement age is something that Social Security has, I guess, invented, and they say that's your normal retirement date. So, it's 66 or 66 in 2 months, 66 in 4 months, all the way up to 67 years old. And for guys like me, I'm 44 years old, it's 67 years old, and they'll probably make it later for me as time goes on. The thing to remember about this, though, is that it does go away after you turn your full retirement age, okay? So that it's not the same thing as taxes, by the way. People often confuse Social Security earnings test with taxes when they're thinking about things, and unfortunately, Social Security taxes are always potentially going to be there. The earnings test goes away once you turn full retirement age. So what's not so easy to understand is that there's 2 different exemption amounts and there's 3 different applications to this rule, okay? So the first way that this applies is if you retire early and you're not yet your full retirement age, there's a lower exemption amount. And it's $19,560 for the year 2022. So if you have earned income above that amount, Social Security will take away $1 for every $2 that you go over. So what that means is that if you make close to $40,000 and you're 63 years old, well, then your earnings test will be close to $10,000 because of the way that rule works. So if your benefit's supposed to be $2,000 a month and you've got a $10,000 penalty and you take your benefit, you're not going to receive a check for 5 months because you've got, 2 times 5 is 10, $2,000 times 5. So then perhaps in June and July and August and September, you would then begin to see a check from Social Security, but then it resets again in January because it is based on the yearly income. So if you are not yet full retirement age and you're still making money, well, then that's going to become an ongoing issue, is that you don't get as much as you thought. So that's the first way that this rule applies. Now, the second way that this applies is an annual amount, and it's unique to people for you right when you get close to your full retirement age. 12 months before retirement, there is a higher exemption amount. And the higher exemption amount for 2022 is $51,960. Now, that means that if you go over your benefit, your exemption amount, so they take away $1 for every $3 that you go over the exemption amount. But what's interesting about this rule is that you can stack up the months. So let's pretend that your full retirement age is June and you make $6,000 a month. So by the time your birthday comes, you've made approximately $30,000 in income. You actually would never see a Social Security earnings penalty because you've only earned $30,000 and the exemption is over $50,000. You turn full retirement age. Once you're full retirement age, the earnings test no longer applies. So you can then go throughout the rest of the year earning your normal income with no earnings test issues. Remember, you may and will have Social Security tax issues, but not earnings test issues at that point. So that's the second way that it applies. So the third version of this test is the monthly earnings test, and it is for people who are retiring before their full retirement age, or they're going to continue to work part-time, especially if they're going to continue to work part-time. So what they do is they spread that lower exemption amount over the 12 months. So they'll take that amount, which is roughly over $19,000. They'll divide it by 12, which is right around $1,600. And they'll say, if you go above $1,600, then the earnings test will apply. So let me tell you why this is interesting. So you might be working and say you made $100,000 the first half of the year. you quit your job, and then you go work part-time for way less money. Well, when this applies, that first half of the year, there was no issue. You then claimed your benefit and you started working part-time. Well, now moving forward, you have to make more than $1,630 before that earnings test actually kicks in. So it really depends on how much earnings you plan on having after you claim it this way or you apply for Social Security. So this is the three ways that they apply. They have different applications depending upon your situation. A very common question I hear people say is, or ask is, well, what counts as earnings? And the answer is anything that's active income. So W-2 income, Schedule C income. What does not count as income? So what does not count as income is IRA distributions, 401k distributions, stock market distributions, pension money, annuities. Anything considered passive income does not count against that. Another question is will my earnings be lost? Will the penalty cause me to lose that money forever? And the good news is no. So once you turn full retirement age, Social Security permanently credits that back to your benefit amount. So for example, if you thought you were going to be unemployed for the rest of your life, took your Social Security benefit, then became reemployed, and you no longer, receive Social Security because you now earn too much money to receive any benefit. Well, the good news is it's not as bad as you think. Okay, they will permanently credit that back. In which situations should you take your benefit early? Well, I'm going to tell you when not to do it. Okay, people often say, should I take my benefit early and invest the money? And I think that the answer to that is usually no, because the penalty from the government on this is guaranteed. Okay, and investments have a hard time actually matching what that penalty would be. Okay, so in general, I don't like to recommend people doing that. Now, I will tell you that there is a situation where people take early, and there's a couple of situations or more, and this may not be exact for you, but if you are married and your spouse is a higher earner than you, and you are qualified for Social Security, and your earnings are less than the exemption amount, well, maybe it makes sense for you to take it early because it's something called the survivor benefit. Now, the survivor benefit applies because what happens when somebody passes away? Okay, so what happens when somebody passes away to your Social Security benefit? The simple version is that you get to keep the larger of the two. That's not the technical version, but that's the simple version. So the smaller amount of money goes away forever. So God forbid somebody passes away 5 or 10 years later. And that means that the smaller benefit, all the years they contributed to Social Security, basically out the window, they're no longer being really as effective. Okay, because if they would have never worked, they would have been able to claim that spousal benefit off of the larger earning spouse. So for that reason, it makes more sense to try to optimize one benefit to be bigger. And as long as earnings aren't getting in the way, take the smaller benefit earlier. Another reason to take early, if you're single and you maybe have a bad health prognosis from a medical doctor, and maybe your life expectancy is not so long, that would be a reason to take it early. However, if you're married and you are the larger income earner, maximizing your Social Security could help you and your spouse to enjoy more money today because that survivor benefit can be significantly larger on the back end and could cause you to maybe feel better about spending money today a little bit more liberally because you may have more Social Security for later. So there's always an exception to the rule. By the way, full disclosure, I do not work for the Social Security Administration. I will include the proper links in the video description for them so you can learn all about all this stuff yourself on their website as well. In conclusion, remember, if you're not yet full retirement age and you're making a lot of money, don't take Social Security early. Also remember that Social Security earnings is not the same thing as Social Security taxes. Social Security earnings will go away someday. Unfortunately, Social Security taxes do not. They're not the same thing. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe so that other people can find this content. And lastly, if you'd like to check out the way that we help people master their money during retirement, take a look at brindleandbay.com. you.